Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Viewers, ever since Donald Trump has risen to power in the US, many of us, people like me, have started reading more about American society, especially the disaffected people there. And there are numerous books that we are reading. And when you read them, you realize that you see a population really badly hurting. But that is, most of the issues might be economic, but there's another factor that is at play here, the role of media channels. The way Fox News and MSNBC have divided the nation, polarized the nation, is astounding, and it surprises you. The Americans have been divided into the ruby red people and the navy blue people. And that is worrying because that can create in coming days a lot of problems. If that can happen there, can it happen at our own home? Can it happen in Pakistan, or is it already happening? We have seen the negative impact of the media or polarization of the media in the West. Even in Europe it is taking place as we speak. But in Pakistan, more or less, this was not that much a serious threat, only until 3 years ago, when a new channel that was about to be launched started confronting one of the largest media groups, and their fight grew so much that the system started heating up. And I'm talking about the social system, the political system, and we ended up with the 4 months of sit-ins in the country. Once again, it seems that the very same two channels are fighting, and because of their fight, the system is again heating up. But this time the target is not the political parties, but the religious elite. And if you don't know anything about Pakistan, that's okay. If you have studied Pakistan's politics, you know what we have gone through. We have lost 70,000 people to war and terrorism and fighting religious extremism. So where does it stop? Are there any checks and balances? If there are checks and balances, are they working? This is going to be today's show and its topic. In order to help us understand all these matters, we are joined by Irfan Ghauri, senior journalist. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Dr. Ahlam Tariq Sahiba, analyst. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program. Next to her is Asad Baig, Executive Director, Media Matters for Democracy. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. And Asad Baig, I have to start with you. Given that we have interacted in the past as well and we have discussed these matters, do you think we have the needed checks and balances in the system at this moment?
Thank you very much, Farooq. The quick answer to your question is yes and no. There are checks and balances, but the problem is the implementation. But before we start the conversation, let me just very quickly add that free media, of course, is very, very important for any given democracy, in the given country in the world. Having said so, the problem, I think, is Karl Marx has very proactively defined this problem, which is the problem between the independence, the balance between the independence and the commercialization of the media.
Okay.
So he's put it like this. So he says, to put media freedom in the same class as the freedom of business is to kill it in the process of the defense.
Okay.
And that is very important because that's, I mean, if you see the media industry, the private media industry in Pakistan, you'll know what I'm talking about. So unfortunately, coming back to your question, unfortunately, the checks and balances are there, but they're not being implemented. PEMRA acted on this particular case that
they're
you've
not
noted
being
down.
implemented,
yes,
or the PEMRA has lost that kind of authority that it was supposed to have?
The authority is still there. We've seen it in action. We've seen it in action today, for instance, in the Supreme Court.
They had to go to the Supreme Court?
But you see, so it's a very long. So let me just start from the very point where we started on off.
Yeah, but you have already started. Do remember? I have to go to other guests as well.
Just very quickly summing up. So the checks and balances are there. But the implementation, it varies in various cases. So for instance, in this particular case, the laws were implemented, but they were implemented after a very long time, I would say, after a period of 4 or 5 days when these hate programs were on air, they were raging violence, online violence, whatever. There have been a long sort of, battle. There was a long battle on social media platforms as well, and so on. So the problem, I would say, is the implementation. The checks and I'm sure you've read the PEMRA ordinance and the rules and the
I
code of
have.
conduct. It's very comprehensive. Let me just say that.
I've read them under your supervision, just to remind you. But let me take the question to Dr. Ahlam. Tariq, ma'am, your take on this?
I believe that there are, and I agree with Sir Asad that there are rules and regulations, yes and no. And the problem is.
Hang on. When you say yes and no, that actually breaks down the argument.
Yes.
I don't know which direction to go.
Well, the problem is that there are rules and regulations, and PEMRA is a regulation authority. It is not, it is supposed to regulate and make rules, but it is not supposed to implement. The courts are supposed to make sure that it is implemented and the rules are upheld.
The courts are supposed to.
Yeah,
Why?
the PEMRA is supposed to.
A regulator is supposed to actually implement.
Well, they are supposed to implement, they make rules and they are supposed to give guidelines, but PEMRA's role is not to implement the law. It is there.
No, actually, the role is to implement the law, not to make it. That is a given. But let me also talk about the ethics that are at hand, that are involved. You can talk about ethics and you can answer the question as well. Do you think, as a working journalist who has been there for quite some time, Ghauri sahab, are you worried for your profession at this moment?
Thank you, Farooq. As in your intro, you said it's a challenge all over the world now. It's not Pakistan specific.
I didn't actually call it a challenge. I called it a threat.
Yeah, it's more, more rather harsh word. I was using a softer word.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, yes, we have a code of ethics. I have with me, it's a long.
Who has a code of ethics? PEMRA has the code of
that's
ethics?
That's where I'm leading to. These code of ethics we have for the journalists and we discuss them. But the thing is that the organizations where you work, do they have such code of ethics, or if they have, do they follow them? So here comes the corporate interests of the private media. When the corporate interest comes, then for them it's the rating, it's the profits, all which matter to them more than any ethics or any.
With due respect, we are talking about two groups that are perhaps not that much worried about rating or commercialism at this moment. Because one of those channels is saying that we are not going to take your advertisements for now. The other one is so rich, it doesn't matter whether it is going to take any revenue out of it or not. It can afford to go on air for days and days without any revenue being generated. So it is not merely about commercialism. Can it be about egos?
That will be, if we limit it our discussion to the two channels or the two media groups, that's a separate thing, or a one media group, that's a separate thing.
But you have to talk
we are
about the
talking
trigger
about the
as well.
industry. We are talking about the industry.
What is up? That is true. But you have to talk about the trigger at this moment as well, because I am worried that this fight between the two groups is actually going to end up becoming something that is not merely about media.
Actually it will be the journalist who will be the ultimate sufferers, I tell you, because whatever the freedom we have earned, our peers they have struggled for, in all that battle, and we have seen in the past as well. There were some incidents where some of our colleagues were involved, or somewhere directly or indirectly, and their impact you have seen that for last 2.5 years or something.
They're underpaid, they're unemployed journalists as well as a result.
Yes.
That is true.
Yes.
That is true. But talking about the ethics, we are going to talk about ethics, but let me come back to the issue of regulator Asad Baig. And the problem is, last time when this happened, this confrontation took place, the only regulator that we knew, that is PEMRA, got itself divided. And once again, we see some kind of forces at play. The way cable operators openly defy the authority, that is worrying. Is there a quick fix here?
It's very worrying. Unfortunately, no. But let me just add to what Irfan said, just very quickly. I know we have short time here, but here's the problem. Pakistani media is over-regulated and under-regulated at the same time. We have APNS, we have CPNE, we have PFUJ, we have various other bodies. All of them have their own code of conducts. Which one gets implemented? Now that's a question up in the air for everybody to answer. Having said
why shouldn't you answer?
In my opinion, nothing ever gets implemented.
In
Nothing
Pakistan?
ever gets followed. No, in Pakistan, not in Pakistan, unfortunately. I'm talking about specifically the media industry. Because, you see, Irfan said that the journalists will suffer. Yes, they will. But who, unfortunately, are the people sitting in Bol right now who was sort of on the street when Bol was shut down, and there was clearly, these indications where they were coming from and so on. So there is a very long debate. Unfortunately,
are you referring to it as a hostage crisis, where our journalist peers are basically hostages?
Farokh, if you have to choose between starvation,
okay,
and the worst working conditions, I think you would have a very limited choice then. And that is what's happening in our media industry, and that is the reality.
Yeah, but
for most of the, I'm not talking about some few anchors or, I'm talking about the whole industry.
I totally get what you're saying. I've been a reporter for quite some time, as you will remember. But the trouble at this moment, Ghauri Saab, is that the channel, one of them actually came up with a lot of promises, and that's why there were so many protests. The trouble is, when you add up all the perks and privileges offered to the people who are working there, it becomes totally impractical business model.
Exactly.
So there must be something behind it.
Exactly.
And that should worry us. And I'm not talking about ethics applying only to journalists. Baig Saab,
Farokh, I think we should have a whole program to discuss this, because, look, it's very simple.
this whole program is to discuss this.
Yeah. So let me just now quickly give this information as well. The ad spend in Pakistan is about 50 billion rupees annually, the electronic media ad spend, right?
Okay.
And the business model, and by the way, let me also mention the biggest chunk goes to Jio, which is about 2.1 to 2.2 billion rupees annually. The business model that Bol was coming in was way higher than that. So my question is, if they were not trying to sort of get their money out of the media industry, what exactly were they targeting to? What exactly were they sort of posing themselves for?
Okay.
And that's a very simple question any journalist should ask themselves before they join an
Is it not the
organization.
question that applies also to the groups that are established like Jio and so many others?
Absolutely. You see, that's my point.
Because you have just told us that maybe even the biggest chunk of revenue that is going to one group or one channel is not good enough.
It's not good enough, and these are the questions the journalists, that's a very simple statement, the journalists working there should be asking their management. I know it's very difficult, it's easier said than done, but you see, if we call ourselves journalists, if we call people who are the mirrors of the society, this is the least we can do, start with ourselves, right? Again, it's a very hypothetical situation that I'm creating here, it's a very idealistic thing that I want to talk about.
No, what you're saying is if you don't like food, go on hunger strike. The trouble is I cannot go on hunger strike. I have to eat and I have to live, right? The trouble at this moment is not on the level of journalists.
But in order to eat...
We have already identified how vulnerable journalists are. The trouble is with the ethics of the owners and some system that cannot be defied.
Unfortunately, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you there. But anyway, so I think this discussion will go on.
I have to come to Dr. Saiba as well because she has been sitting here.
My original question is still pending, by the way, about the TTH.
But
I've taken all the time, so yes.
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I think we need to realize that PEMRA in Pakistan is just like any other institution, for instance, FBR, or any other institution which we see and which we see that they are powerless in some instances. Similarly, PEMRA can issue notices, PEMRA can issue orders, but unfortunately they don't really have the means to actually go to a cable operator.
Why not?
All of them, because they simply don't have the means, they don't have the resources, unfortunately. They're not made in a way.
How did they work in the past when during Pervez Musharraf's time, Pervez Musharraf banned one channel, and again, you have mentioned it already, and poof, it was gone. Of all the networks.
Because in that time, there were a lot of supplementary forces working in tandem with PEMRA.
Like what?
Like, so for instance, the past chairman, we were just discussing it, the past chairman...
Before the program we were discussing it.
Yes, we were. And the past chairman, they have been former police officers. Okay. And so they, it's my presumption.
They had that kind of clout and friendship with the others.
Yes, they had some
pick up the phone
forces.
and just shut the channel down.
Yeah. So it is possible that they were using their network.
So why shouldn't this government use that model?
No, we're specifically talking about one institution and not the government. So the government's, the implementation of PEMRA is, of course, the implementation of the rules and regulations. It's a duty of the government as well. But specifically speaking of PEMRA, I don't feel they have enough resources to actually go to each and every cable operator and ensure that.
But you're saying
But having
in the
said
past
so,
they did have some kind of working model.
Supplementary forces which were working.
So
in
why not
tandem with
find
PEMRA.
those very
I
supplementary
mean, yeah,
forces
if you get a former, a police
Policeman?
officer, perhaps you'll get those supplementary.
Why not?
But you see, then again, we need to understand here that the way PEMRA was established through an ordinance, it was made to regulate media, yes, but also to control it in not a very good sense, because the way it was done.
Censor it?
Censor it, yeah, is perhaps the right word.
Pervez Musharraf's entire duration, with the exception of last 1 year, there was hardly any censorship at all. And that goes for People's Party's 5 years, and that comes back to today as well. Media is not being controlled. The trouble, Dr. Saab, at this moment is I remember those days when the idea of PEMRA was first conceived. It was called Rambo, I guess. Then they realized that it was quite a muscular name, and then they changed it to PEMRA. At this moment, what can we do to make sure that PEMRA doesn't only threaten, but it can bite when something really bad is happening?
Well, PEMRA, we should remember that PEMRA is an independent body. It is independent for the...
Autonomous, not independent.
Yes, autonomous body, and it should... it is a part of government. However, for it to follow the rules of freedom and accountability, it should be a bit more independent from the government. And for it to have more power, it needs to... they need more funding, and they also need probably...
They need more funding. Recently, they sold the licenses of DTH. That must have given them quite a lot of flowing cash.
No, it didn't, unfortunately.
Why not?
Because the license weren't actually sold.
But they were offered. So they can generate revenue as well if they want.
They are generating a lot of revenue. Sorry, please.
Well, PEMRA is... the regulatory body does not have a lot of power. I think they...
this is what I'm saying. How to charge them, how to give them power. Should we have some nuclear plant next to them that they have that kind of power?
I think it means that PEMRA should, maybe it is the right route to go to the courts at the moment, and once their appeals,
prayer was heard, that was heard today.
Yeah, so
and there is a momentary ban on one program, but the problem is that the anchors keep on changing, the message remains the same, and the methodology behind it is not being punished. My concern is, see, I am for media freedoms, and I have been beaten during Pervez Musharraf's last time, badly beaten as well. I tell you, I am all for media freedom. But the problem is, if somebody is inciting sectarian violence sitting on television, it is not only contradictory to PEMRA's bylaws, it is also to the spirit of National Action Plan. And nobody is actually there to actually tell them to shut it down, shut this kind of inciting down.
this is very disturbing to know that such sort of activities are
I'm not going to let you talk before both of them are finished.
Sorry,
I think there is some level of self-censorship that journalists should also make sure that they are doing, and the organization...
Self-censorship.
Self-censorship.
You have used one of the worst words. We don't care for the C word.
Well,
Self-regulation maybe.
Self-regulation.
Self-censorship? No, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
The organizations and the journalists both do not regulate themselves and do not make sure that they are following the rules.
You're giving me excellent questions, and let me take it to Irfan Ghauri Saab. Irfan Ghauri Saab, why is it that our channels are not regulating themselves? Where are the editorial boards?
That's the, I think that's the dilemma here.
Is it dilemma?
It is.
Or it is open defiance?
No, it is a dilemma. Actually, I tell you, it's when we talk about, if we would have had our editorial controls, be it the print media or the electronic media, the situation would have been very, very different. The case you are talking about, one or two specific cases, this is not the first incident
Mind
that took
you,
place.
these two channels are the best, some
and-
of the best
and-
equipped.
Sir,
Compared to
yes,
them, other channels run from small houses, cottages, and they have no board, no editorial oversight, and they can do whatever they want.
Sir, you can live in a palace, but if you don't have ethics, it doesn't matter where you live.
Okay.
So that is
Who
not
doesn't have
the
ethics?
argument. I
Who-
think it is
Who doesn't have the ethics?
I mean, it's the actually
Media
it is the
groups don't
media
have
groups.
ethics?
If they have, they don't follow it, and that is and here when we talk about the PEMRA's role, there is a debate on that. I mean, I'm not in favor of government imposed restrictions on me. Rather than
I get it.
It is the industry that should come up with and gradually we had seen that there was some improvement in
Yeah.
many cases,
And,
like
and if you remember at the heyday, during the heyday of war on terror, all the media groups actually came together for a code of ethics or code of conduct for the reporters per se. But we haven't seen much progress even after that.
No, we had. If you can, I tell you, I witnessed to that. There was a time when in our channels, if a bomb blast or something had happened, the footages we were showing and all that was
Tampering
really,
with the evidence
and
also.
all that. And then
showing
if you,
dead bodies,
yes, and
gruesome
if you
pictures.
recall, there was an incident on Muharram in Pindi. I was there as well, and the reporters themselves and the media organizations, because it would have led to a sort of very intense sectarian thing. So at that time, the channels, most of the channels, I think they blacked it out, and this is something which was positive. But when it comes to the,
Actually,
it is
that
also
interesting. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there was another question lurking at the back of my mind, and let me ask Baig Saab about that. Baig Saab, in America, FCC not only controls the airwaves or regulates the airwaves, but also the internet and all that as well. We have two bodies here. One is PEMRA, specifically for the airwaves. The other one is for telecommunication. It is called PTA. Is it not important that both of them be merged so that both can keep a vigilant eye? Because the incident that was just mentioned, I remember back then television was silent, but there was a lot of speculation going on Facebook, on Twitter. Please go ahead.
It is very important, not just important, because there's this sort of convergence of the mediums going on all around the world. In Pakistan as well, with the penetration of internet, now we see that. And so here's a scenario. PEMRA has banned a particular program on Bold television. What if the anchor is to just connect a camera and go on YouTube and start doing a live there?
They do.
They don't have PEMRA don't have currently jurisdiction on internet. PTA has that. But unfortunately, somebody will have to invoke the law, the cybercrimes law under FIA, and then they'll have to go PTA. And so it's a whole plethora of procedures before that. Not only they should merge it, but they should make an independent body, like Irfan Saab was just saying, because currently the model that PEMRA is working on is directly under the Information Ministry.
Okay.
And whatever action, be it good or bad, that PEMRA takes...
When I talk to the government, they say, no, it is autonomous.
No, that's their claim.
But
The thing
their
is,
claim, and
who
it is
is
your
the
claim.
appointing authority?
So
There are
I'm
various
lost
things.
between the two claims somewhere.
Let me just very quickly answer that as well.
No, that is not a question, by the way. That was an observation.
But there is a very, very good answer for that, because currently, if you see the employment procedures, the deputation procedures of the chairman of PEMRA and the chairman of, let's say, an independent regulator like Election Commission of Pakistan, you'll see the difference. You see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but there are political parties that will even accuse Election Commission of being complacent in a lot of ways. So you'll have that kind of divide. The concern at this moment right now is that I see a huge problem every day. And repeatedly I've spoken about it, I've written about it, tweeted, Facebook, whatever it takes. I've met people as well, because it really bothers me. The same channel comes to my house, and there too we have very impressionable people sitting as well, the kids and the youth. The trouble is, on one side, PEMRA issues this notice that they are suspending. 5 minutes later, the same man is sitting on television saying the same thing even more viciously and in utter disregard for the law. Tell me what to fix at this point.
Look, it's just very straightforwardly answering your question, no sort of context here. The problem is not just PEMRA here. The problem is overall implementation of laws in Pakistan, be it anywhere.
I cannot change that. Please come back to
That's
my
what
own
I'm saying. So
profession.
it's not just like a quick fix that you put a band-aid on PEMRA. By the way, PEMRA, if you compare the performance of PEMRA before and after the new chairman, it's a very big difference as I
but
see
this
it.
program is not critical of anybody, any individual.
No,
by
no,
the way.
that's my personal opinion. I'm
Yeah.
not criticizing it or the program. It's my personal opinion. But having said so, we also see instances like a particular news anchor, not news anchor, but a sort of show host taking hostage of PEMRA staff in Lahore office. I'm sure you must have seen that video circulating on YouTube where this particular person with a group of lawyers actually took hostage of a PEMRA official in Lahore. So, these are the instances which are actually happening on ground. So, PEMRA's responsibility,
So
yes.
should they have batons? Should they have tanks? Should they have some kind of
I think we
bombs?
already have that. I think we have courts, we have police structure and all that. We have a
Yeah, but,
we
but
have a
police
system.
doesn't actually report to PEMRA.
No, but it does to court, and the courts can be. So here's the point.
So if I'm taken hostage, I have to first go to the court, and then I have to get the police, and then I have to
you
get
could also
protected.
just call 1-5, but that's another issue. But what I'm trying to, on a serious note, what I'm trying to say is that we've seen this happening in the case of Karachi. Sindh High Court came up with a state on this particular thing. Not only that, they threatened and also proceeded with the contempt of court proceedings against the chairman of PEMRA. That in itself, and it was blatant incitement of violence by
By
Amir
whom?
Liaquat Hussain on bold television. We saw that. Everybody saw that. Right?
Yeah, but you see, there are questions that are still not being addressed, and that worries me, Dr. Sahiba. That when Amir Liaquat, or for that matter anybody, I don't have any personal beef against him. My concern is that whenever such people come on television, whatever they're saying is bought by people. That tells me that there must be some kind of rationale, albeit there must be some spin as well. They must have exaggerated it. But this India angle, that India somehow supports or sponsors our media groups. What worried me recently was our cinema, houses actually boycotted Indian movies after the very bad treatment meted out to our own actors there or our films. All of a sudden, the entire media is telling me that Pakistani cinema cannot work if Indian movies are not going to be introduced again here. And the trouble is that I know I've grown up in the age when there was no Indian movies in our cinemas. It worked fine. It made money. So what's going on?
I think that obviously Indian cinema and Indian movies sell to our public.
No, but I'm talking about media, I'm not talking about cinema. Remember, I'm giving you an example that there are questions that are not being resolved. If you don't do it, somebody is going to take them and run away with them.
Yes, the problem is that you talked about people being impressionable and people being influenced by these famous personalities on television.
Hell, I said my own family. Come on. How specific can I be?
Yes, so the problem is that they are really popular and people listen to them, and despite the fact that there is a lot of hate against this Amir Liaquat, the problem is that he is very influential and people like to watch him, and they like to see him, and they also like to ridicule him on social media. However, he becomes very influential by that whole drama around him.
Okay,
it makes him more
he gets
influential.
that, he becomes
Yeah.
that, and I totally get it. But the question again is about the so-called foreign investment in the media. Somehow media being played by external forces. The question is this discussion about Aman Ki Asha. We heard too many people criticizing it.
Yes.
Too many people supporting it as well.
Yes.
I am looking for the middle ground, and what I'm trying to dig out of it is, if there were funding of any channel, it can be of Bol, it can be of Jio, it can be of so many other channels, fortunately not my own, but it can be of anyone else. do we have the mechanism to actually dig that information out and end this chapter?
We probably have the mechanism, but I think the
Probably
interest
is not the good is not a good answer.
well, but the problem is that most of the channels have their own agendas, and when they are following them, they probably make them sound differently than the actual story is. So that is what happens.
That is called exaggeration, and the
Exaggeration.
trouble is they keep on doing that, and their agendas might be there. But antitrust is another very important thing. The kind of monopolies that we have seen is worrying as well. But Ghauri Saab, you can talk about the legal aspects all you want. But your favorite issue that you mentioned at the very start, and I'm sticking with that, ethics. As an anchor, a bilingual anchor, when I go out, and there are people who shake my hand, I'm not only honored, but when I come back, I feel empowered and then responsible for what I say on television as well. The concern is these people, the people who are playing with fire at this moment. And I'm not talking about only one group. Forgive me if that is the impression, because I think that there must be something wrong at both ends, because there's so much fight going on all the time. Where is that kind of control or moral burden on these anchors, that they are not taking care of the basic or simplest ethics that they are?
Farooq, as an anchor or as a news person, first of all, you know what is your role, what is your objective. And with your role as anchor, you are actually building the opinion of the people. So that is where which you asked the question from madam, that a specific person, why he's still popular. The thing is that over the period of time, their perception, the way that perception was built, some people might like them, some people might hate them, and some people, they get into the controversies, because the controversies, when you become controversial, you become more popular, you are discussed everywhere. So that's what some people deliberately do it, number one. Number two, as a journalist, when we say about the accountability of the others, I think we should be the first one to present ourselves for a rigorous scrutiny, what we are doing. So here, when we talk about the role of these people who are sort of defacing the media industry or the face of media, keep in mind that these are the same people who are employed by one organization and then by another, then by another. You just go to their track record, and those people are being
This
employed.
is no excuse, I'm sorry, but I tell you why. Because you might say that they are disfiguring the media, and you may say that they are actually not even journalists, but the problem, my dear friend, is that you lost that control, and now they are controlling your airwaves. You should have been there, instead of some Ahmed Lakat or somebody else, or somebody talking about the end of times, right? That doesn't happen.
Yeah, but
in the society, I cannot go back in time and change what has already happened. It has been going on for 12, 13, 14 years.
That's true, but Farooq, I have all the right to have my own opinion.
No, that is true, but
that is if you accept my right, and you
and I have the right to confront you as well.
That's right. That's right. But the
okay,
thing is
let me take another angle.
Sure.
Just humor me.
Sure.
There is some problem with the right-wing media as well. Right-wing media as
Right.
well. And why I say it, I don't know how old were you at that time, but I was a kid. Probably you must be younger at that time when Rushdie's book
not
actually.
that younger.
But Rushdie's book actually came out.
Right.
And at that time
In
there
88.
was an outrage in the society. But it was not outrage based on that book because nobody had the time to read the book. One of the right-leaning, extremely right actually publication, translated the contentious chapters in Urdu and published them. Everyone went after and criticized Rushdie. Nobody asked them, why did you actually translate something that was disturbing and publish in the publication? And they got away with murder. They were the ones who made the problem worse. So how to fix the right wing journalism in the country, if there is a
Farooq, it's not the first, the example you have mentioned. There are so many examples. You have seen that so many people, they have been killed because of the way that issue was portrayed in the media. Again, it's a bit controversial subject. It's the murder of the former governor, Salman Taseer.
Yeah.
So there are so many examples here where the people, they lost life because of the way the media and are specific, people in the media, they took up the matter and they incited the people, and then
so controlling those elements is your and my responsibility as journalist, or it is not?
It is, first of all, it's my responsibility as a journalist for my own self. That it's my credibility is at stake, and next is your organization, of course, because if I am not allowed to publish anything, how it's the decision of the editor, and as a reporter, as a journalist, I think I have this right that if I want to go for a story, or if I and I feel that or somebody in my organization, they ask me to do a story, I think I should have the courage that, man, yes, that might be your
strike then.
No. That it's not the way. The thing is that, again, as a professional, the tools, how you can play with that, and these are the very basic things in journalism.
Ghauri sahab, it takes two to tango, and the trouble at this moment is, you're absolutely right. You're talking about ethics and what is your responsibility, but you are talking in the context of professionalism, where your attitude is professional, and the supervisor that you have will also display some kind of professionalism. Your experience is there. My experience is there. I can tell you, I don't find that kind of professionalism coming from the other side. So what do you do?
You mean from the organization?
Yeah.
So look for another avenue, because your objective was, as a journalist,
what if you don't have any?
No, you will have. This is not the argument. I think if you say that, if it is, if there is something you have been, forced to do, maybe it is one time, other time, but you cannot do it continuously.
That so it has never happened to you that you have written a piece, filed it with your byline?
At least I haven't filed it with my byline. If I was...
you have filed a story with your byline, and tomorrow when it has appeared, it was altogether different story with your byline?
I have the right to protest, at least.
Actually, coming back to, you want to say something, I know. You're bursting to say something. But let me add a question here as well. Sure. Given that we are talking about regulations, we are talking about code of conduct, we are talking about ethics, I'm sure that the lawmakers, many of them might be watching us right now. I want to know, what is their response? Is it conducive when you interact with them? Agitate about any kind of lawmaking?
Thank you. It's a very, very good question. Thank you for mentioning it, because I really want to talk about it. But first, I think there is one thing, a concept that we keep forgetting. It's called self-regulation. So here's how it works. It's about I regulate myself, my organization regulates itself. It doesn't work here. So for instance, let's say an XYZ organization regulating itself fails to regulate itself, then what? So there is this new idea of community regulation that we are trying to research on in the neighboring countries, including Sri Lanka and Indonesia and others who have been experimenting with it. So it's, say for instance, there is a council in PFUJ and PBA and all have a unified council, and they are basically regulating all these working environments of the journalists as well as the content which is coming out of the... So this is an idea of, which reminds me
That's a good idea, but not that much practical. The gentleman we were discussing lands usually as the president of an organization,
I was
right?
And
he has never been part of any professional media body.
I was coming to that. So the rifts between these bodies, the very reputation of these bodies in Pakistan is very sketchy. So that sort of lands us in a difficult spot. But then again, there is also one other question. So when there is a ban on a certain television channel or whatever program or an anchor, we see these protests happening on the roads by various unions and of representatives and so on. But I don't see any protest or even a statement when somebody incites violence on a national television. I don't see anything from them.
Violence, particularly of religious
Exactly,
kind?
right? So there
Because
has to
people
be,
must be afraid.
Yes.
Just somebody mentioned, I think Ghauri sahab mentioned
So,
a governor being killed.
You
So
know,
many other people.
I doubt that,
So-
because the kind of movements that these organizations, the unions and representatives
No.
of these unions they've run, frankly speaking, you know, they've done some very good
Have you
work.
forgotten those days when Salman Taseer was killed? I tell you, I had 1 or 2 temperature. I was on leave and I pulled myself back and brought myself to the studio. And entire day when we had the special transmission discussing it, I got religious clerics, the clerics actually condemning the event, the incident, sad incident. But I kept on contacting his own party, that is People's Party, and everybody would duck. And I knew that there was some kind of mood change, some atmospheric change, where people started fearing for their lives.
No, sir,
How do you actually argue with that kind of a thing?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because if you do it as an individual, you might be at risk of various sort of, you know, violence and so on. But if you do it as an organization, so for instance, if the statement should have came out from, let's say, PFUJ or any other press club in the country or any other UJ local union saying that we condemn this incitement to violence incident which has been happening here and this is defaming journalists or journalism and it's happening on a television, you know, something is better than nothing, right?
Okay, something is better than nothing, but very
then again,
effectively,
but then again,
you
if it's-
detract me into asking further, supplementary questions,
I'm
and you
coming to
haven't
your question.
answered the
I'm
original
coming to
one.
your question, the original one. First off, I see the people of opposition, lawmakers from the opposition parties who are in the parliament now very actively coming on the camera in front of the parliament, giving like 15 recommendations on how to reform PEMRA. Sir, you were in the power like 4 years ago, 3 years ago. What have you done? So my point is, the lawmakers are very conducive when they're not in power. Whenever they are in power, they're not conducive. So, I can name a few. For instance, Senator Kamil Agha, he's very active now in giving out recommendations on PEMRA reforms and, whatnot. But, sir, you were in alliance, you were in power alliance, not 3 years ago. You could have very easily done it. You had the majority. But so,
the problem is, we keep talking about the past. I don't have a time machine. I cannot go back in time and change the attitude. The trouble is, we have to have some kind of answer right now. And the problem is that we have civil society organizations like your own. We have professional bodies. We have professional bodies that, bring media owners together as well. Then we have lawmakers. We have so many other solutions. Judiciary is also involved. Then we have PEMRA. And yet, the end result that I'm getting is horrific. Somebody has to fix it.
I won't deny for
the other argument would be that somebody comes and bans all of them.
I completely agree with you, because you're giving out space for that to happen. I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, what you are saying is absolutely true. It's a very stark picture that we have right now. But the only way of moving forward, if we can do it perhaps in one in just one line, I can say it, the only way of moving forward is with the support of judiciary. It has been the solution in the past. It is the solution now. Without that, nothing really is going to happen.
So what happens? If someday judiciary orders something, and such media groups actually start defying that as well, because in the past they kept on using accusations against honorable judges as well. We have seen.
Yes,
another Hakim Luqman was actually called
Yes,
many times to the court.
Yes, that's why, Farooq, if you allow me to continue from where Baig Sahab has left. The thing is that I think if you give this role to lawmakers or the government or the judiciary is not meant to make the laws. They can give you directions. It's the journalists themselves and the journalistic bodies. I'm not talking about the media bodies here, because till now we do not have any consensus.
You just told me about the vulnerability of a working journalist.
But
that
is where your journalistic bodies come in, because
they won't.
They would have to. Otherwise, what will happen?
The entire body of workers in our channel, today they resign. Tomorrow there will be somebody else to fill their shoes.
So, I mean, if you leave it up to the owners or if to the management of the TV channels, that will be because the
So-
way they started their business model and all that is based on their commercial interest, not to
Yeah,
serve the
or maybe
journalism.
political interest, or maybe some other interest. But I'll take this as answer pending answer.
So you should have another program on it.
I hope in coming days we'll have more of them, and let us hope that the reason why there is so much polarization, that also
Farooq, by the
is
way,
addressed.
that's-
I'm told that we have done
Okay.
short of time. I've been given 3 warnings that we have to actually cut short. But Asad, Baig, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Ahlam, Tariq, Saiba, thank you very much for your time as well. Irfan, Ghauri sahab, always great having you in the show. Thank you very much. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. The questions are of existential nature. Democracies have to function, and in order for them to function free and fairly, the important thing is media has to be free as well. But it has to be free of the influences that we have seen. And nobody is asking these questions. Not only one side of it, that somebody can say whatever they want to on the television and get away with it. There has to be a other side as well. If somebody is being repeatedly accused of doing something wrong, at least we should have some kind of tools to know what is going on. Instead of banning the entire channel or perhaps the entire industry, we have to have more legal, constitutional tools. And maybe in coming days, we can talk in detail about those tools as well. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.